Hello, Lifetime Learning Institute students. I was looking forward to meeting with you again the very last week of this spring semester, but with the coronavirus, we needed to stay home. So instead of being in front of you again and getting to see each one of you and check up with you on how your research is going, I will present this information via this video. And if you have any questions, please refer to the handout that was included with a link to this video and send me a message. So this presentation is publishing your family history. So after you've done a whole bunch of research and you've got really great information about your family, what do you do with it? Well, let me show you some things you can do. But first, sometimes the reason why we don't publish a family history is we get intimidated about actually writing things about our ancestors. So if that is you, I would recommend a site from Amy Johnson Crow. She has this series called 52 Ancestors in 52 Weeks. So she sends you an email every week, and then she gives you a prompt to write something. And when she sends you a prompt, it's not that you need to write an entire page. It's just to give you an idea to write a paragraph or two. Now, 5 of the prompts from her 52 Ancestors in 52 Weeks are a favorite photo, or heirlooms, or where there's a will, or Valentine, or favorite name. And so she writes a little bit more about each one of these things to kind of get you thinking so that you can write something down. And again, this is not about writing something perfect. It's just about writing something that you can share, even if it's only 1 or 2 paragraphs. So, from Merriam-Webster's dictionary, we get the definition of publish, which is to produce or release for distribution. So if you're going to create a genealogy book, how will you format your book? Now, we've talked about all the different programs that are available online. Some have free versions with fewer bells and whistles. Some are completely free versions. Some of the versions you actually need to purchase. So whichever version of genealogy software you are using, there will be some way for you to publish or pull out reports. So take a look at your program. I use Family Tree Maker, so that's what you're going to see here, but I promise the genealogy programs are very similar. They're going to be similar report types. The other way you can do it if you don't want to use a genealogy program is you can do what I call freeform. This is a page from a book that my 9th cousin, once removed, sent to me. We discovered each other online in the late 1990s, and he is in the Netherlands, in the area where our family comes from. He was not interested in using a genealogy program because at that time there were no free versions. So he literally formatted this on his own. Now, the neat thing that he did was he inserted photos within the report. So if you see here, oh, by the way, this is written in the Dutch language, so if you can't read it, that's why. So this is 2nd generation, and it shows our common ancestor, Hein Veliki. And you notice he lived between 1440 and 1512. Well, this is a picture of the area where our family was from. And here it's dated 1592. So it's just after the time when these 2 gentlemen lived. So that I thought was kind of a neat way to break up the reports because they can get kind of mundane and looking the same through and through. So this is something you can do. Um, Remember, people have been researching genealogy for hundreds of years. Some of the report formats that I'm going to show you have been used for hundreds of years. In this case, my ninth cousin, once removed, Hank, put some pictures in between showing what life was like in these areas. So, if you are going to be creating a book or some kind of report to share with people, which report are you going to pick? If you haven't looked at each of the reports within your genealogy program or looked up traditional reports that genealogists use, I'm going to show you those right now. So one report is called the Anantafel report. So I want you to think of ancestor when you see the term Anantafel. That means you start with the youngest person and you work backwards to their ancestors. And I show you a snippet of what an ancestor report looks like on this page. The kind of opposite of this report is called a descendant report. In this case, you start with the oldest generation and you work forward. And again, here is a snippet for you to see what this report looks like. And this was the report that Hank used in that freeform page. Like I said, he just stuck pictures in between generations. This is another type of report. It's called an outline ancestor report. And again, you start with the youngest person and it goes increasingly older to as far as you have researched. And like the last report, the opposite is an outline descendant report where it starts with the oldest person you've researched and goes forward to the youngest. Another type of chart is called a pedigree chart, and this is most of what a pedigree chart looks like. And I have filled in the titles of the people that would be included in this type of report. Another type of report is called a family group sheet. This is a family group sheet. Dora here is my great grandmother, so that makes Daniel and Ellen my second great grandparents. In this case, it shows the husband and wife and all of the children. Ellen died at the age of 45, so Daniel and Ellen only had one child, and I picked this report so that you could read it on your screen. Another type of report is a descendant chart, and again, this starts with the oldest person that you have researched. Of course, you can change who you start your charts with as well. And then we have the vertical pedigree chart. This chart started with a particular set of ancestors. This chart starts with the child and goes back as many generations as you define it. And in this chart, I don't have it listed, but these charts also sometimes have a date range. So birth year dash, in this case it would be blank, but up here birth year dash death year. Now, in Family Tree Maker, I have 28 different options for charts. So I want you to know that it's not just the limited number of reports that I showed you in this presentation. There are lots of different things that you can do to create reports that you can then turn around and publish. In 1998 and again in 2000, I was researching my maiden name, Veliki, and I created books that I sent to all the different people that were helping me with researching backwards and researching forwards. And I self-published. I went to Staples because that was the only office company in the town I lived in, and I created comb bound books. Well, you also have this option. These prices are from OfficeDepot.com, and I just decided okay, if I want to order 100 books and each book is 100 pages, this would be the price range for these three binding types. And if I only wanted 10 books of those 100 pages, this would be the price range for each of these books. Now, since I originally created this presentation a few years ago, there is actually a way where you can send the electronic version of the book, for example, through OfficeDepot.com, and have it printed wherever someone else is going to pick it up. And I think there might be an option where you don't have to pay for it first. They actually have to pay for it when they pick it up. I'm not sure about that. You'll have to double check. So that would be a way to save postage. I had to pay for postage for all of the books that I sent out. Another type of publishing is called professional publishing, and that's where you end up with books with one of those two binding options, perfect bound or hardbound. The perfect bound would be a little less expensive, and if you remember telephone books, our old telephone books were perfect bound. And you can see the price range there. So if you're going to order 100 books with 100 pages, they would be $4.56 a piece perfect bound and $12.50 each hardbound. Now, something to consider with this. This company, 48hourbooks.com, is one of the less expensive companies, and their minimum order is 100 books. You may be stuck with a whole bunch of books because you don't have 100 people to give them to. So you might want to consider that option if you want to actually create your own hardbound book or perfect bound book. We do have technology on our side. We can create ebooks where people can just download a file. There are two companies called Lulu and Blurb, and they offer multiple ebook formats. Kindle, on the other hand, only offers the Kindle format. So you're going to have to know the technology capabilities of the people you are sending ebooks to. Some things to keep in mind with ebooks is the formatting requirements. I can't remember if it was Lulu or Blurb, but I looked at their help book and it was really, really long, and it defined every single font for every single thing you wanted to do. My recommendation is just try to upload it and see what happens. And then if it doesn't upload well, then you can look through their help book. You can hire someone at those companies to format the book for you if this seems a little bit intimidating. But there will be some costs involved if you hire someone to help you format your book. The other thing to keep in mind is software upgrades. Our software is constantly changing and there are always new updates. I am not sure how long each of the different file types will be relevant for people to open with their tablets or computers. That may be a good question to ask one of these publishing companies, and or look in their frequently asked questions area or FAQ area. The other thing you need to know is that in companies like Lulu and Blurb, anybody can upload anything. If you just open their catalog and you look at the first page of books that are available using movie terminology, They could be anywhere between G rated books and X rated books. So you're going to have to decide if that is something you want to do, if the person just goes to Lulu or Blurb. Um, with Lulu and Blurb and Kindle, you have the opportunity to also list it on Amazon if you want to sell it. So that is another type of publishing that you could use. Now, you've worked really, really hard on your family research. So, where would be the good places to share this so that other people can see it? Well, you can share it with your family, close family and extended families. You can share it with the genealogical or historical societies in the locations where your family lived. You can share it in the libraries where your family lived. Most libraries have a local history section. You can also share it with state historical society libraries. And this is donating printed books. You can also donate these books to libraries with a genealogical focus. Um, the big three are the Allen Public Library in Fort Wayne, Indiana, the Family History Library in Salt Lake City, Utah, and the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. My recommendation is if you plan on donating a book to a library or a genealogical society, go to that webpage and see what the policies are on receiving donated books. You will have a better chance of that book actually ending up on the shelves and not getting recycled if you double check with the policies. The other thing is you might want to consider a small monetary donation with the book, like $20. There is some staff time into properly labeling these books and getting them put into their online catalogs and getting them put on the shelves. So if you can, you might want to consider a monetary donation. And the the library that you're sending this book to may have recommendations in their policy as well. So before I get on to other ways to publish, if you have any questions on how to publish a book from your software or freeform, why don't you hover over this presentation and you will see the pause button. Go ahead and click the pause button, write down your questions quick, and rejoin us. And I'm going to intentionally not say anything for just a few seconds to give you a chance to find that pause button if you have questions. Now, publishing books and publishing reports is the traditional way to share genealogy information. But I didn't want you to think that that was the only way. For all of you who are very, very creative, here are some other ways you can share your family tree information. The first is needle art publishing, and this is actually a contemporary needle art um, tree. There are kits. Search for family tree cross stitch or family tree embroidery, whichever one you know how to do better. They exist. You can purchase them. So this is a contemporary one, and here is a very old one. Do you see William James' birth date was in 1794 and his death was in 1808? And says 1820. This says, can't tell if that says 1831 or 1811. This was an embroidery piece done by a young girl as part of what young girls were expected to do in learning how to sew. I found a website that rescues these old samplers, they're called, and these are related to families and actually offers these for sale. Here is another contemporary way of sharing your family tree. That's needle art. And this is a quilt that someone made. They used the photo transfer paper onto fabric. Um, with the photo transfer paper, I wouldn't recommend washing this quilt very many times because some of the lighter photos will fade to just white. But this is another way you can share your family tree. And oh, I just noticed this person right here must have been with the police department because here are police patches by them. Well, that's kind of cool. Jewelry is another way to share your family tree. Do you notice this one includes furry family because there's a dog? This type of family tree sharing is a little more permanent. You're not going to be able to just pick this up and move it quickly, but you literally can paint a tree on your wall and put all of these photos up. Now, if you notice, 6 generations of people on this wall. And they have somehow found photos of every single person. This is a more contemporary take on the same thing. This is a shelf, and it just has picture frames of different people in the family. Tombstones are a way to share our family history as too. So you can see this tombstone is quite detailed. It has this family, and it appears as though they had 6, 7, 8, 9 children, and then there are all their grandchildren. Now, this person went the extra mile and actually did a pedigree chart on their tombstone. Finally, after years of looking, I can credit this photo. A woman by the name of Cheryl Lang took this picture, and it is from a cemetery in northern Missouri. There is also ornamental publishing. This is something that you can buy. I think it came from Hallmark, and you can put pictures of your family in. And then, of course, there's always the Christmas ornaments where you can have different numbers of people put on the ornament and different names associated with them. This is a really fun one. Someone took a Scrabble board and made a whole bunch of small pictures, and I assume this is all glued on. So if you like this idea, you can run to Goodwill or Savers and see if they have any Scrabble boards for sale. This is a shadow box, and it looks like it actually has a branch, but then paper leaves, and these are photos. So here is another way that you can share a family tree. Now, we all know how frustrating it is to find photos and have no names on it. So I would put on the back the names of all of these people in the photos for future generations reference. This is another neat idea I found. I think I found the gentleman's picture first, and then I just had to find a woman's picture too. So there are 4 generations in this picture. I'm not sure how they arranged this with the photographer, but it's kind of a fun idea. And in this case, they have the youngest person on the inside, but you could easily flip this around so that the oldest generation is in the middle and the youngest person is holding the frame or maybe standing next to the frame. I found this on a Dutch genealogy site. This is how this particular particular family celebrates Christmas. At the top of the tree are all their family members in gold who have died. In the bottom of the tree are all living family members, and these are all star ornaments. And so every year they have to shift one or two from silver to gold, but then they also get to add new family members in silver. Then there is also edible publishing. Now, this publishing doesn't last as long. In my younger years, I took the series of 3 Wilton classes at, I believe it was Hobby Lobby. I would estimate that it took between 3 and 4 hours to decorate this cake. But it is kind of a fun way to share a family tree, especially with, in this case, great grandma. And this is another way. These look like cookies that were hung on this tree. Not sure what they did in the middle here, but if you showed this to a bakery, I bet they could figure something out. And this is kind of a permanent type of publishing a tree that the younger ones seem to be into. I would highly recommend, if you're going to get a tattoo of your family, that you really want to make sure you've got all of these names correctly as far as relationships, and that they're spelled correctly, because that would be kind of embarrassing if it wasn't. On this page, I want to show you what I affectionately call my great uncle Ben. Remember how I said in the late 90s, I met my 9th cousin once removed, Hank, via email? I got my start with my Velicky family tree from this gentleman right here. His name is Benjamin Velicky. And he did a lot of work on our family in the 1960s and the 1970s. The Velicky last name is an unusual last name. To date, any Velicky that I have found in the United States or Canada, I can trace to a single Velicky family in the Netherlands. Because of my great uncle Ben, a man I had never met, I received a great start to my research with my Velicky family tree, because he contacted lots and lots of people all over the US, Canada, and in the Netherlands. And when I started contacting people asking for information, I received 6 different copies of this type of report that were all researched by this man, Ben. The neat thing about these 6 different copies of this report is that the dates changed. So you see here, Louis Zimmerman died in 1973. Well, I have others where they either died or a child was born after 1973. So I can approximately date these reports. These reports were between 4 and 6 pages in length. The first page was the immigrant ancestor family, and this is the immigrant ancestor that I descend from. So then there was 1 page or 2 pages or 3 pages, depending upon how many children and grandchildren there were from these original immigrant ancestors. Just for the record, this is my grandfather. So, my great uncle, Benjamin Velicky, gave me a huge start to my research. Now, he doesn't have the sources. He doesn't tell me where he learned the information that's listed on this page, but I have been able to independently verify a lot of it. So my question to you is, will you be someone's great uncle or great aunt that helps them along in their genealogy research? Will you create some kind of reports to share with a family, or share at a library, or share at a genealogical society that will help someone down the road benefit from all the research you did? I sincerely hope you will be like my great uncle Ben. If you have any questions, please go ahead and write them down and send me an email. I'm very happy to answer them, both about this presentation and in genealogy in general. And again, I'm sorry we weren't able to meet in person for this last class for the Lifetime Learning Institute. And I wish you the very best in your genealogy research.